All right, I'm back. Number 5. It says, Trisha's puppy weighs 5 pounds. How many ounces does her puppy weigh? Well, I know that there are 16 ounces in 1 pound. So if I have 5 pounds, and this is actually a conversion rate, this is how this works for conversions. We're going to figure out how many ounces there are in 5 pounds. How did I get from 1 to 5? I multiplied by 5. So I'm going to do the exact same thing over here. When I multiply 16 times 5, I get 80. And so I know that there are 80 ounces in 5 pounds. So the correct answer is letter A. That one actually might have been the easiest one on here. All right, number 6 says, Jabbar lives 5 miles from the soccer fields. Sawyer lives 12.7 kilometers from the same soccer fields. Who lives farther? Let me get a little bit better grip on my phone. Okay, so I gave you a little bit of a conversion factor at the top. It says 1 mile is the same thing as 1.61 kilometers. My suggestion to you is to convert miles to kilometers. So I'm going to take that 5 miles, and I know that for every 1 mile, it is 1.61 kilometers. But I have 5 miles, so again, a conversion factor. So I'm going to do the exact same thing here. 1 times 5 is 5. 1.61 times 5 is, move my decimal place 2 places to the left, 8.05. So Jabbar lives 8.05 kilometers from the soccer fields. Sawyer lives further than that. He lives 12.7. So I already know my answer is going to be Sawyer. I just have to figure out how much further. So 12.7 is Sawyer minus 8.05. Remember that we line up our decimal points. So I'm going to have to put a 0 here as a placeholder. When I do that, this is so hard to see as I'm holding my phone. When I do that, I get 4.65 is the difference. So Sawyer does live further by 4.65 kilometers. Number 7. I give you a clue to find the boat and the train first, and that's because the airplane is the hardest one. But you know that if you've already found the boat and the train, then you can add those together and subtract from 360 to get your angle. So number 7 says, a travel magazine surveyed 500 of its adult readers about their favorite ways to travel. The circle graph below shows that 125 people like to travel by train, 275 people like to travel by airplane, and 100 people like to travel by boat. So we're going to find the boat and the train first. We'll start with train. So out of the total of 500 people, we know that 125 people like to travel by train. So I'm going to put a T here just so I don't get mixed up. So I'm going to look and I'm going to say, well, how did I get from 125 to 500? Because this is a lot easier of a pattern to figure out than this one is. From 500 to 360 is kind of difficult because remember, we can only multiply or divide. So 125 to 500, well, I'm just going to start multiplying. 125 times 3 is 375, not quite enough. Hopefully this works as a whole number. Oh, it does. 125 times 4. So I went from here to here, I multiplied by 4. That means that I'm going to divide from here to here by 4. And I'm going to do the exact same thing over here. So 360 divided by 4 is 90 degrees because 90 times 4, 9 times 4 is 36. So 90 times 4 is 360. So my first one for train is 90 degrees. My next one, and remember I suggested that you do the boat next. So the boat is 100 people out of the 500 people like to travel by boat. So we're going to say out of 360 degrees. This one's a really easy one to see. 100 times 5 is 500. So 500 divided by 5 is 100. This one is one that I suggest that you just memorize. 360 divided by 5 is 72 degrees. But if you didn't have it memorized and you had to actually divide it out, you could obviously. 5 goes into 36 7 times, which is 35. Bring down my 0. And there's my 72 degrees. So now we know that this one was, oh, I put my T and then it disappeared on me. There's my train. There's my boat. So I'm going to add these two together, and then I'm going to subtract from 360. When I do that, I get 198 degrees. So I'm just going to go ahead and go fill in my airplane as 198 degrees. You could set it up and you could say, well, airplane, 275 people out of the 500 like to travel. I could obviously set this up as 360 degrees. Ignore this because that's not going to be here. This is where I need, oh, I'm running out of room here. This is where I would actually do my work to figure out how to get from 500 to 275. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to divide by, but here's the weird part. 500 divided by 275 is not going to be a pretty number. It's actually a repeating decimal. So it is much better if you just add them together and subtract.